Here.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hang on, I'll just hang up my phone. Oh, come on. Where are you?
And if you go down to video, you can click, and you click that, we can see you.
Okay, hang on. That better?
That's better. That's fantastic.
Okay. Oh, I like your backdrop.
Yes, that's my backdrop. Well, good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Margie. Lovely to see you in person.
Yes, and it's a real pleasure to have you join me this morning on this Zoom session. And so you're living in Adelaide, I believe.
I am. I'm living in Adelaide. I've been here now for about 40 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, so near the beach, but not as close as your backdrop.
Well, I'm pretty close to the beach, a bit high up. I'm on the Gold Coast in Queensland, of course.
Beautiful, yeah.
So it's always exciting to be able to communicate with someone in across the country as we are this morning.
Yes, so I'm very excited. I'm a little bit nervous, but excited.
Yeah, that's all right. You're allowed to be. I know that you recently published a book, or some months ago that you actually published your first book.
I did.
So would you like to tell us about it?
Yep, this is my book. I don't know if it can see it.
Yes, like a dandelion in the wind.
That's the one, yep. Yes, it was a very long, hard road for me because I had very limited education. I travelled around Australia with my lovable rascal of a father who couldn't stay in one place longer than about 6 to 12 months. I think he had gypsy blood running through his veins. He pulled me out of school when I was barely 13. Wouldn't let me go to school till I was 7. So I only had like 5 years all up of education, primary education. So yes, I was, but I had many adventures traveling around Australia with him, and that's what my book is all about. The first part, it's in 2 parts. So the first part is my life up to the age of 14. And then the second part is when I met my husband and got married. I was married very young.
So that's all in one book, not
all in one book.
Yes.
It should have been 2, but unfortunately I couldn't afford at the time to do 2 books.
Yeah.
So it's part 1 and part 2 all in the one book.
Oh yeah. And so how many pages about is it?
It's about 407, I think, all up. So it's quite a large book.
That is very substantial.
It is.
Yes.
So, you know, the first part all talks about all my adventures with my lovable rascal of a dad. And he was a lovable rascal. He could probably con anybody into anything, but they all loved him. He had charisma, and he'd move from one place and go to another in Australia and open a business, and his businesses would do wonderfully well, but his downfall was the ladies. And so, you know, poor mum would be out the back struggling with cleaning fish and chips and cleaning fish and cutting chips, and he'd be out the front with all these pretty ladies, you know, waiting for customers. So 6 months down the track, you know, all his money would go on the ladies, and he'd have to close, and his creditors would be after him, so he'd be off to another part of Australia, and that's how we went around Australia. So it's a very interesting, different story. To me, as a child, I thought it was a big adventure. I loved it, but my mother went through hell, unfortunately. So that's the first story. And then the second part is I met my husband when I was 14, when we came to Adelaide. I was engaged by the age of 15, married at 16, and I had my first child at 17. And then that's all the adventures of our life together. We ran a pub in Burra, in a little country town called Burra.
In South Australia.
South Australia. It was a little mining town, and my in-laws had bought the hotel, and of course I was too young to even drink in the hotel, but I was old enough to run it. So then we went overseas. All my husband's family decided to go overseas, so we went overseas for a holiday, basically, to start with. And then we ended up staying there for 4 years, got caught up in a terrible Turkish invasion that they had in Cyprus.
Mm.
And we got evacuated to London, which luckily my husband worked for the English base at the time, so we got evacuated to London. Spent 2 years in London, horrific 2 years actually, because we had nothing. And then we came back to Australia with about $30 in our pocket and started all over again.
Oh, golly.
So it's all those adventures. When we got back to Australia, I fought the biggest battle of my life because I had to save my children from an very evil entity, which I'll go into in the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was all a very big adventure. So that's what my book is all about.
Well, that's tremendous. And how did you go about publishing it?
I have, well, for many, many years, in my workplaces, I used to relate my stories to, my workmates, and they'd say, you must write a book. You have to write a book. And I never imagined in my wildest dreams that I ever would write a book because of my education. I thought I'm not educated enough to do something like that. But I did write all my memories. I jotted them down into little notepads on the trains and buses coming and going from work for 13 odd years. And this was about 30 years ago. Then I put them all away, forgot all about them until my son gave me his old computer, and I decided to put them all transfer them all onto a Word document. But nobody had told me about saving, so I lost them I lost them about 3 times. So eventually I got them into bought a new computer and did it properly. And then I just wrote for the next 14 years.
14 years.
14 years it took me from the time I put them into that Word, because I was still working.
Does that mean you were writing every single day, or
I would come home from work because I was still working. I'd come home from work, and yes, I'd sit up there and try to fix the things up, because when I put them on the computer, I put them on the way I speak,
Yes.
No punctuation marks, just got it down.
Yes.
It took me 14 years to fix it up, basically, but I did try to do it nearly every day. Right. I set aside an hour or a couple of hours in the evening when everyone had, when I'd finished everything.
What did you find was the most challenging thing about the whole process?
For me personally, I think it was the grammatical side of it.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea. I didn't even know how to put things into paragraphs. I had to learn all that. And I think that was the most challenging thing. And then, of course, I read and listened to a lot of people about traditional publishing and self-publishing, and that was even confusing me even more. So I think that was very challenging, but I think the most challenging was the grammatical side of it.
Yes.
Fixing it.
When did you first think you wanted to write this book?
This book came, I think, probably, about 30 years ago.
30 years ago.
30 years ago. But even as a child, I was a great storyteller. I used to tell people lots of stories, and they used to say to me, you'll be an author when you grow up. And I'd say, nah, but I just like to tell stories. So I guess I've always wanted to, but never really thought I could.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is an inspiration, I think, what you've done. And if you were to tell your younger self about something, what would it be?
My younger self. That's an
Yeah.
interesting question. It's a hard question, but I think I'd probably say don't listen to other people. Do what you want to do. Say no. I was one of those people that would always say yes to everybody. And I think follow your dreams. Like, you know, really, if you want to do something, never give up on your dreams, because I think it might take, like me, 30 years, but it'll happen eventually. Yes. But mainly, yeah, always follow your gut feeling. If you think something is not right, don't do it. And if your gut tells you to do it, then do it. I think I was because I was married young, and I guess, you know, people told me what to do and I did it. Whereas if I had my chance again, I'd say no more often. Yes, no. I'd say no more often.
So have you got another book planned?
I have, which sounds really shocking to me too, but I had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life.
Yeah.
So I've started to document those now, separate from this book, because there's a few in this book, but I've got a lot more. So I've been writing those. So hopefully it won't be a big book, but it'll be another book.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Well, I think your story is fascinating. And before we close, tell us, how do we get your book?
Okay, you can, they can go through my Facebook page, which if they just go in Like a Dandelion in the Wind, it comes up with my page, or Amazon. You can get it through Amazon, or through the, I had to write them down because I can't remember them all. But yeah, the Australian Authors store / Andrea Johns, that will come up with all the actual links to how you can buy the book. Right. So even if they just go to the it's HTTPS, all that, you know, AustralianAuthors.store / Andrea Johns, that'll come onto my page, and that's the one my publishers have set up.
Right. Okay.
So then all the links are linked to that.
Well, thank you, Angela.
Andrea.
I really appreciate your willingness to do this, to be a bit of a guinea pig, you know, for the Fast Self-Publishing Online group.
Thank you.
I'm sure what you've done will be an inspiration to others. So keep up the fantastic work.
Thank you.
And look forward to the next book. So thank you very much.
It's getting there. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about my book a little bit. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and see you online.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.